Excuse me. Right.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to our Committee of the Whole meeting for November 1st, 2022. There's no amendments to the agenda, so we'll kick this off right away here. So can I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
I'll make a motion to adopt the agenda.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Councillor Henshaw and Councillor Paquette. Moving right along, can I have a motion to adopt the draft minutes from the regular meeting of October 18th, 2022?
I'll make a motion to adopt the minutes on October 18th, 2022.
I'll second.
Councillor Burris, thank you, Councillor. Any questions or comments?
No.
All in favor? Carried. Motion to pay the tabled open payables in the amount of $461,483.88.
I'll make a motion to pay the open payables.
Thank you, Councillor Panther. Thank you, Councillor Burtis. Any questions or comments?
Just for the record, can we just state what the large charges are, presumably capital purchases?
Can you?
Oh, sure.
direct us a couple?
60785 and 60825.
Your worship, sorry, what was that? 60785?
Yeah,
Simple.
Simcoe, that's the energy upgrades on the ice plant at the rec center. And that was part of your capital budget from last year
right.
or this year. Sorry, and what was the second one?
60825 inland Kenworth.
Yeah, that is the purchase of the new dump truck that council approved at the last meeting, and I'll cover that in my CAO report about it as well.
Thank you.
Any more questions or comments? All in favor? Carried. Just for the record, CAO Lockwood's in Whitehorse right now, so. Come to us by Zoom. So next on the agenda, we have the RCMP. Welcome.
So, hey everyone, my name is Brandon Gilroy. I've been around for 12 years. I've been in, I've only been in once a couple months, but I've been in division for 4 and a bit. I was in Carmax for 4 years just before this. Before that I was up in Nunavut. Before that I was in BC. I don't know if anyone knows my wife, but Vicki McDonald, she's drug and alcohol counselor here in town as well. So very excited to be here. Very glad to meet all you guys. Forward to getting to know you. Hello, everybody. My name is Corporal Michael O'Connell. I'm board up here as the new officer CEO here at the detachment. Currently acting as the detachment commander. 15 and a bit years service. Actually started my career here in Long Snake as a constable back in 2008 as a brand new constable on the road. Spent till just before the Olympics in 2010 and then went down to Vancouver Island. Took the opportunity to promote up because I wanted to be here, so it worked out well. My wife is also a member who's part of the Indigenous committees and CO's Indigenous committees that run on HQ. That's me.
Hi, my name is Pat, Constable Mueller. I got up here in August, around the same time as Brendan. I have 11 years of service. I've mostly been with for that. And I love it here. It's nice to meet you.
That's great. Well, we're happy to have you guys. I know that the detachment's been low for a while and it's much needed relief for them. So it's great that you guys are here, and I welcome you to the community, and I hope you find your way just fine. I always ask the same questions, and that is, do you play hockey? Because we're always looking for extra hockey players.
We're always
A lot
looking
of
at
head up
coaches too.
hockey coaches.
I still have a traditional Wolfpack jersey from
Yeah, perfect.
Awesome.
Perfect. So hopefully we'll have some old timers hockey that can come out and take part. Yeah. There's enough for you. Yeah. It's great. Perfect. But yeah, so thank you for being here, and we look forward to seeing you guys around in the community. Okay. Okay. Thank you very much. So we're gonna carry on. You're welcome to stay. No need to. Got a big agenda ahead of us. So next on the agenda, we have Jordan Stackhouse from Elevator Yukon to discuss the NLC interim report, Northern Lights Center. Hi,
Hey,
Jordan.
hi, council. Hope everybody's doing well. Yeah, I just wanted to pop into the meeting quickly to provide I guess a verbal report on our written interim report. Just let you guys know about the status of the project, answer any questions, and let you know about the next steps. My colleague Karen Furlong and I had the opportunity to travel down to Watson Lake a few weeks ago. There we met with a number of user groups for the the NLC project. So we met with the secondary school, the university, as well as the elementary school. And we were going to meet with Queer Yukon, but didn't happen. But we will follow back up on that. I'll kind of present my verbal report in two parts. So one will be just feedback on the engagement so far. And then the second will just be some of the highlights, I guess, of the visual inspection that was done at the facility. On the engagement front, I can tell you that people are very pleased to see the town of Watson Lake investing in this infrastructure, this asset. It's certainly very valued amongst the people that we had talked to. And I guess something that we had learned in discussing this with folks is that throughout the life of the NLC, it's kind of been represented different things to different people at different times. And so, there's been times where, kids played video games in there all Saturday. And, it's been so much more than just a theater to show tourists or let them learn about the Northern Lights. And that's certainly come through. And I think we haven't really done any analysis yet on what people are saying and how that kind of intersects with where you guys might want to go in terms of how the NLC develops. But I can tell you there's certainly lots of ideas for how that space could be used. And one aspect that we're looking at is balancing, the costs of running this asset, with programming and what the community wants to see out of it. Of course, ensuring that it can pay for itself as much as possible, and that it's serving a need in the community. So those are really the two things that we're looking at. Something else that came through in the engagement so far was that there is probably a really good opportunity to I think about and understand how it is the town engages and displays Indigenous culture and art within the municipality. So pretty much everyone we spoke to felt that there was a lack of kind of formal installations, if that's what you want to call them, or things that they could go and see that expressly talk about the Kaska heritage and culture of the area. And so I see that as a kind of a really cool opportunity as we move forward with this project. I talked to Cam, and I think, like the Northern Lights are still like very important, and it's not something the NLC wants to get away from, but also, what are the opportunities to move forward, maybe towards reconciliation, maybe towards just a better representation of the people that live in the community. And certainly the folks that we talked to at the school, we talked a lot about pride of community, pride of heritage, and particularly with the First Nations youth in the community. And we just learned that there isn't a ton of things that necessarily celebrate the First Nations culture within the community. And so I think that's just like a good area of opportunity to look at as we develop this project, is how can we bring in more First Nations representation? And I know that's just from my previous discussions with council, like that's something that you guys have expressed as being very important to you as well. Reconciliation more broadly, I guess, but this can be a form of that, I suppose. And so, we haven't had the time to kind of analyze this all yet and provide any recommendations to you, but I think there's some really interesting opportunities coming out of that. And really, is not forcing, but is allowing the town to think about how it can use its existing assets and infrastructure to move towards reconciliation and be representative of the people that live in the community. So I think it's a really great thing to think about within the context of this project. Is there any questions on what we've kind of, other than that, I would just say like, people would love to see more programming, you know, that's always a balance. And I think, you know, the town certainly provided more programming when there's been a demand and pulled back when there hasn't been the demand. And I think what will be really interesting is finding that common ground or that balance where the town's able to consistently offer programming, high quality of programming, and a better use of the Northern Light Center, but balancing the costs and responsibilities of doing that and what that looks like. And again, that's going to come in under the analysis piece. Before I switch to just the visual inspection, I'll just say like, on the financial front, the cost recovery is not where it needs to be. It was under 5% last year, I believe. And I know like COVID is an outlier in terms of, maybe you guys had some extra COVID money to absorb some of those costs or whatever, but we do need to take a good hard look about the financial sustainability of the NLC and where the town is willing, where is that number the town is willing to support to, and try to keep it there on a consistent basis, because I think it's difficult when one year you're recovering 60% and the next year you're recovering 5%. And how do you budget for that? So I think it becomes very difficult, and another place where we can provide more analysis and value. On the inspection, in terms of the actual building itself, I'm pleased to report there's no major concerns at this time. Gord Sunby was the individual who was able to do the inspection, so I'm very pleased we're able to hire local. And he did a great thorough job. He just noted a few small things. So there's a few rodent issues in the building, but it's easy to take care of. The boiler, he wasn't able to set the heat, but he did say that it was undergoing some servicing at the time. So that might have been why. The access, so barrier free and access could use a lot of work. That's an area that could use a lot of work in the facility. And then there's just some things like the stairs leading down to the basement don't meet code, and those need to be replaced, that kind of thing. But, you know, it's certainly like the big ticket items, replacing the envelope, replacing the roof. I don't necessarily foresee any of that. It's not required anyways. I'll just say that.
Yeah, just did the roof.
And other than that, you know, I think as we're moving forward, now that we've kind of got our bearings and we've done some of this work, our team's going to dig into the analysis, and, you know, we'll probably develop a bunch more questions for Cam to answer. We're getting Northern Front Studio. We're going to feed this all this intelligence to them, and they're going to come down to do a public engagement, hopefully before, in December. It will be in December. And that will be like a bigger public engagement. So this was kind of a bit more targeted of user groups. And then after that, like I do have the funding application the municipality has been working on. We can provide some assistance there, and I know it's evolving a little bit as well. So there may be opportunities to expand the scope of this project based on like some money that's available for through Canor, or maybe it's not, but we're trying to build that flexibility like within the project, and just maximize the revenue potential and the amount of grants that we could get towards redeveloping the facility. Of course, the big ticket item is the projector. Sorry, I didn't mention that, but I think that's kind of a given. That's the whole reason for doing this work. So, and other than that, yeah, I'm excited to dig into the analysis and start like fleshing out a business kind of approach and a business plan that will reveal more questions. And we're angling to have this complete in January, I think, right, Cam, to meet your funding deadlines. But I think so far so good, guys. And it's been a really positive project to work on. in terms of the feedback from the community. Everybody's very happy that it's being invested in. You know, and it makes our work not easy, but a lot nicer than having to fight with people all the time or whatever. So yeah, and I guess just that update for you guys, and you can expect Northern Front to be coming down to do a larger engagement in December, and then a draft report shortly thereafter. And I think so far so good, I guess. But that's basically what we've learned so far, and I'll just open up the floor to questions if there is any, or be happy to let you guys move on with your agenda as well.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Stackhouse. It was a pleasure. The report is great. I'm glad you got the feedback you did. I too agree with the reconciliation piece and the Casca Heritage Incorporation. I think that's an opportunity that could be very well utilized for the NLC. I also saw in your report lots about the upgrading for the use of the schools, which I think funding could help pay for that cost recovery piece. But yes, thank you. Looking forward to working on this project. Does council have any questions or comments?
It's a good report. Thank you for the work you put into it.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
So no questions at this point. I guess you're off the hook. But
Knocked it out of the park, eh?
yeah, great. Thank you, Jordan Stackhouse.
Okay, thanks. I'm gonna hang out online for a little bit, but I'm good.
Okay, I appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Okay, next on the agenda, we have Erin Ponte. Hello, ma'am.
First of all, hi, Jordan, I missed you. Thanks, guys.
Hey, Erin.
Hi, thanks for having me, guys. I'm gonna try not to take up too much of your time. But, and I think that our displeasure at how this process has unfolded has been thoroughly communicated, and I don't want that dead horse, so I'm just going to move on. I have a couple of questions that I want to ask, and I realize not all of them can be answered today right this second, so I'm just going to ask Tiffany to please report them all so that they can be answered in a letter if they can't be answered. Okay. All right. So the reason I'm here today is because I believe that there have been some gaps that have been identified through this process, and controversial events such as these provide opportunities to review processes that need revisiting. This process has shone a light on the need for some municipal council and community cooperative policy updates, and I'm going to highlight some of them now. So to begin, I have a few clarifying questions that I'd like to ask in regards to the response we received that highlights these issues. So I'm speaking about the response that Cam sent you. I'm assuming you guys have already. Okay. So first, I'd like to address the statement made on the second page in the first paragraph of the letter. So I just have it highlighted here, but just at the bottom of the first page and then top of the second. It says the property lines were also confirmed by reviewing the legal survey completed by Underhill, which has been completed in August 2021. That's referring to the legal survey of Andy Shannon's lot, because we are extremely concerned about the digging along our property line that was unmarked and so I'd just like to add some information to that statement because it's not entirely correct. Tyson and I hired Underhill in September 2022, which is when surveyed stakes were added to the property corners that adjoin Andy's property and ours. They were not done before this, and we have extensive evidence through emails with Underhill that show this. Andy may have done the outside corners, but the inner corners were not done, hence why we were so concerned about Andy digging along our unsurveyed and unmarked property line. So I think that this information is part of a policy or procedure that needs to be addressed about collecting it and making sure that it is thorough. Okay, so secondly, in the last paragraph of the same page, Cam states that bylaw does not believe that you are misinterpreting the general maintenance and nuisance bylaw, as you are in fact correct that there should not be stored waste, dumping of waste, or abandoned vehicles on the property. However, the property owner is currently cleaning up the materials that were exposed during their lot clearing and have been given a timeline for expected completion. The property owner has been granted a development permit, which is valid for 1 year from issuance. This means that the property owner can continue with the cleanup of their property so long as new material is not being buried until their timeline expiry. So, first question, Does that mean that Andy is allowed to bury people with waste? Is that something we can answer right now?
No. We don't have the answer for that.
Well, I can see the camps, that's why I'm asking.
Yeah, I think it'll be best if we can collect your questions and we'll respond to it.
No problem. Okay, so that is the first one. Does that mean he's allowed to bury the existing waste that's there right now? Does the town of Watson Lake believe that there is waste in the hillside right now? So I'm talking about the one that is in between Dennis Ryan and myself. The other one is quite obvious. Does the town believe that gravel has been dumped down the hillside? And will the town allow Andy to continue to put gravel down the hillside? So I want to know if there's waste in the hillside, because it looks like to me there's been gravel put down it, and if he is not allowed to bury that with waste, it's my opinion, he should not be allowed to keep putting gravel down that hillside until it's been removed, all the waste. Town has also said that the town is receiving waste from these properties, and they have the tipping bills that prove this. My question in response to this is, have the loads been inspected? And how are you confirming the origin of these loads? Okay, so those are all my questions. I'm just going to finish with a statement and that's it. So not having updated policies undermines the accomplishments of the town and degrades the confidence in the town's ability to represent its constituents. However, many small communities like ours have advanced down this road. There are many online communities of excellence, of standard operating procedures, and of policies tried and implemented, as well as ones under review. This would be an excellent place to begin your research. The role of government is to prepare, produce, implement, trial, review, and improve using key performance indicators in order to ensure ongoing adaptation to societal pressures and changes. We are not starting from scratch, but have a vast digital library to assist this much needed growth. We have heard lots of different things through this process, including an apology for the delayed response to our letter. But what we have not heard is how is the town going to move forward to make sure no one waits 6 months for a response letter again? We are not interested in who is to blame. We want to know what is coming next. So the final question I will ask you this evening is to mayor and council. Will you commit to reviewing or creating a communication and accountability process and include this issue in your upcoming budgeting process?
Thank you, Mr. Ponte.
Thank you for your
I
time.
would like to ask you a question.
Oh, shoot.
What is the end result of this situation for you? What does it look like? What is your goal?
I would like
Yes.
the town to review its policies and procedures regarding how it responds to situations like this. There is very little accountability from the community about what happened. We received very little response from the community about what you were doing, which turned out to be a lot, but we didn't know that. We had no idea. We felt like an island alone out there being attacked, and we had no help from anybody. And we didn't find out until 6 months later when we responded to that you guys have been doing all this behind the scene work, which we truly appreciate. But the fact is that somebody should have responded to us, and somebody should have followed up with us, even outside the administration, like maybe one of you guys. That would have been great. That's what I would have done when I was on council. So that's what I would like. I would like more accountability from you, more accountability from administration, and better communication with the community, because this is a relationship and that requires good communication. And this has shown a glaring hole in your ability to communicate or your sorry, I lost the word I'm looking, your capacity to communicate. Like whether you don't have enough administration or policy, I don't know what it is, because I haven't gone through them. But I'm asking you to look at it and compare it to other communities that are great at communicating, and let's try to work towards that.
Okay, I appreciate that. So you're asking for something from council to come back with, but your situation with admin and Andy are dealt with?
Well, I mean, I would like the answers to my questions, because I truly think what's important here is having that waste removed from the hillside, and it hasn't been.
So you're not asking for just us to be accountable, you're asking for admin to
Well,
deal with that situation as well.
That your entire organization needs a bit more accountability, and I'm not going to continue sacrificing my mental health to keep going down this road, but I would like to know how, if he is required to remove that waste, how are we going to make sure that he's doing it? Because it says we have a letter from Cam
that he didn't have a development permit and he didn't start with that one and he has broken across this whole community in every property he's worked on, and we know that. So why are we giving people like Andy the benefit of the doubt? And why don't we have an accountability procedure to make sure that we're not?
Okay,
Thank you for your time.
thank you.
Thank you.
Darren.
Quick question. We do have, one to present, is that something you have on schedule today, or should we be on the agenda for next time?
Oh, that's the basic number?
Yeah,
Yeah,
let's do it next time.
next time, okay, sure.
That's fine. We've seen them quite regularly, so
Yeah.
next time it'll be
Cool.
ready for us. Appreciate it, though. Thanks, folks.
Thanks, guys.
Coming.
Thanks, Mike, on the back. Yeah.
See you.
See you around.
Bye.
Thank you.
Okay. So moving right along,
There's the room.
going to go to number. Sorry, just let me open up my agenda here. Number 7, the Art First Nation Movember request. I just get this letter up so I can read it. So Blair Ralkoff is the community health promotion for the Art First Nation. The health department is looking to put a Movember event to raise awareness and funds to donate to men's prostate and testicular cancer research. We're hoping the town of Watson Lake would participate in the community event, and we're asking for a reduced rate for the use of the community hall for this event. There will be prizes for best, worst, and most creative mustache, and have a raffle with smaller prizes, and those funds will go towards the research as well. We're going to have a lunch for all the attending, and the whole community is invited to participate in this event. Everyone is welcome. There needs to be more awareness for men's health, and this is a good place to start. I've invited the emergency services to participate and different businesses around town as well. Thank you for your time, and I hope we can work together more closely in the future. Sincerely, Blair Ralkoff.
Well, I'm not all that confident in my ability to produce a mustache, but I would make a motion to
Sorry.
rent the hall at the nonprofit rate.
Okay.
For this event.
I will second that. Thank you, Councillor Hunter. Thank you, Councillor Burtis. Any more questions or comments? No.
I think it's a good cause, so it's.
All in favor? Carried.
Thank you.
I will work on my mustache.
Okay.
You have to shave to start with.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you have.
I haven't won anything for a long time.
We'll be watching you.
Okay. Okay. Next on the agenda. CAO Lockwood, please, if you would.
Good evening, everyone. So yeah, I'm in Whitehorse at the Recycling Summit, and I presented on Watson Lake's landfill and recycling operations today, which rather was shocked. I got some good reviews after the meeting, after my presentation. So it put most of the people here are Whitehorse or government or Southern different entities. So it was nice to put the community spin on everything. So that went over well. Other updates that are going on right now for you is that I'm very happy to say that the change room renovations are currently underway at the rec center after almost a 5-month delay. So that's moving ahead. We have dedicated change locker room 3 now is the shower. So it's the only room that has a segregated a shower that can be used without access from other rooms. The haunted house was a big success from all the feedback that I've heard. Unfortunately, I missed the fireworks from last night, but thanks to some of the community members, I got to see it on Facebook today. So it looked like it turned out very nice. It's a very good thing for community morale every year. So that's good to have out of the way. The next thing that's currently going on is testing of our pumps and hoses and ladders at the fire department. It's a mandatory yearly event, and that's going on, and it's always in we line it up with the fireworks because the testing company is also the fireworks company, so it's a double bang for us by having them down.
Double bang.
No doubt with the fireworks.
Good one.
Yeah.
That's the.
So as it was mentioned in the payables, we received the new dump truck. It arrived on Monday, and I drove the salesman back to Whitehorse yesterday when I came up. Staff got the orientation on it. It is a very nice piece of equipment, and staff wanted to make sure I shared their appreciation with council for getting them equipment that allows them to better do their jobs in the community. And timing was everything, based on the fact that we wouldn't have been able to get another truck until 2024. Timing was everything by that increase in budget that council approved. This truck, for the little bit in increase in our budget, I think this truck interior wise would rival the mayor's Ford truck he's driving. So it actually has a leather interior.
Wow.
So the other thing that's out for tender right now is the public waste drop-off area is out for tender for the second time. First time we were unsuccessful in getting companies to bid on it. This time the documents have been pulled. We're actually expecting a site visit tomorrow from one of the companies to actually preview what's going on there. So that's fairly exciting for us. And to fill in on a piece on what Jordan reported on the Northern Lights Center, the HVAC mechanical has been in and finished their work at the majority of the work at the Northern Lights Center and the Rec Center. The only thing we got left now is they're coming back in the next week to finish servicing the one boiler and running the new oil lines from the new fuel tank at the Northern Lights Center. And they'll be servicing the rest of our oil-fired appliances while they're down. So it's nice to get that off the books and done. And also on Saturday, I received the last two of our fleet pickup trucks came in on Saturday. So we're working on getting them deckled and then reassigned out to the departments, and then the older vehicles will be put up for auction. So it's nice to get that looked after. We did successfully sell the old flush truck, which was inoperable for doing flushing, but we put it out for auction, and we received numerous bids on it, and Castle Rock Industries out of Whitehorse actually bought it. So we have $21,000 coming back into the town budget thanks to that. Your worship, I've received response from Minister Pillai to your letter about the tourism, the welcome to the Yukon sign down by Lucky Lake. And he acknowledged the receipt of the letter, and that he is tasked departmental staff to repair that sign. So he said the work was supposed to be done in the next couple of weeks. So that's good. The other thing that's coming up is Remembrance Day. As we all know, today was the first day of poppy sales. So we're working on our plans for Remembrance Day. We have two different options that are on the table, and the last 2 years we've been outside at the admin building. It's been very well received, but depends on, it's weather dependent. Sorry?
It's supposed to be a cold one.
Yes, so I guess we're gonna go ahead with our plans and just wait till probably 3 days before to see what the weather forecast is. And if it is for really cold, then we will hold it in the rec center. If the weather is nice, then we will stay with the original plan of being outside at the admin building if that's agreeable with council.
Mhm. Sounds good.
Yeah. So the other thing that my staff has been working diligently on and which is supposed to be submitted back to Shannon for tomorrow is projected budgets. So no, sorry, yeah, my days are out of whack. I'm thinking Thursday they're supposed to be to Shannon, but that's the projected budgets for O&M and capital are supposed to be back to Shannon so she can get them in a document so that myself and her can start reviewing them with departmental staff. So that way we can present the provisional O&M budget to council for your committee of the whole meeting on December. I can't remember the date, 6th, maybe? Yes, 6th. So that's when it'll come forward. We just need to have the provisional O&M budget passed by motion before the end of December. And then the full O&M budget and capital budget will come to the committee of the whole meeting in January, the first one, for starting that discussion to move things forward to getting them through the pipe and passed, and then probably your town hall meeting to talk about them as we go forward. And then the only other thing that I have on my list right now, unless there's going to be council questions, excuse me, is council may remember, some members may remember that I received a scholarship from CAMA, so the Canadian Association of Municipal Administrators, to attend their annual conference, which is included in my employment package. So they've rolled that over because I've had that for 2 years and the conference hasn't happened. So this year's meeting, my registration and everything is covered. It would just be that I need approval from council for me to attend, and that would be municipality paying for my travel.
Okay. We'll have to make a motion at some point, but we don't have to do that right away. Cam, when's the conference?
It's not till May, your worship, so that can be brought, you can make that motion at the next meeting, so we're not crossing the committee of the whole guidelines.
Thank you. Great. We will have that set for the agenda. Might as well be the next November agenda, next regular council meeting.
Thank you. That's it for now, your worship, unless there's questions.
Well, we'll leave them for council open forum.
I have a really quick one.
Okay, sure, council.
I was just wondering if, and you may have told me this before, so I apologize if so, but when you put a piece of equipment up to auction and like the 21,000, for example, where does that money go?
It goes into our general reserves. Last year in your capital budget, you actually had, we brought that money forward and you had actually authorized spending of some of that money to buy a side-by-side for the landfill for safety. We haven't spent that yet, but it's actually some money that we've sort of kept, we've been treating as a reserve, unofficial reserve in our bank account and our savings account, and that can be brought forward to budgetary issues.
Thank you.
Any more
That's all for now.
questions for now, or council open forum will do?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, CAO Laco. Next on our agenda, we have the fees and charges bylaw. There is some requested amendments from administration. I'm just gonna glance over them quick, well, not glance. I'm gonna go over the highlighted ones that we were provided, just for the gallery. My first sheet here, I have the bylaw fees. There was some increase to license tag, neuter cat, 10 to 20. License tag, neutered cat, dog, lifetime, $50. Maybe I'll stick to the highlighted ones, or else I'll be going through all these suggested. So the highlighted pound feed and care went from $15 to $20. The local, so, and then the next one is business licenses. Local business annual fee went from 100 to 125. The comparables for Whitehorse is 160 and Dawson City is 125. Non-residential business annual fee, $200. It was $200, suggested $250. Whitehorse is $846 and Dawson is $600.
How many of those do we sell a year?
That's also nice to have this.
Because I thought maybe Dawson City having a very transient gold mining.
Right.
You know, like land for business, I thought maybe that was the reason there, like, do we have any, do we even sell any of those locally?
Cam, do you have the answer to that?
I'm sorry, you were really muffled there, Counselor Slager, but I think your question was, do we sell any of those non-resident business license? Yes, we do, quite a few.
Oh, okay.
The only difference is, some businesses are covered under the intermunicipal business license, but that is laid out in an agreement through all the communities under AYC. And a lot of these businesses aren't eligible under the non-resident. So that would be like the fishmonger when he comes through, and some of those fruit trucks and them are covered under non-resident, not intermunicipal.
Garbage. But isn't that different as we have a hawker's license as well?
That falls under the non-resident, because a lot of that, when you read the definition, and what I can do for your next meeting is provide you the definition of intermunicipal, so you have that for reference.
Good.
How did you guys decide on these numbers?
This is just recommendations from the department staff, based on comparables and not wanting to, we're not out there to really jack prices up for local businesses for no reason. It's just trying to suggest a happy medium to cover things like the pound feed and care, a $5 increase. We're finding that, at $15, we're having people not pick up their dogs from the pound because they're viewing it as as a boarding kennel. So when they go away, if their dog gets picked up, they pay the $15 and then they don't have to worry about anybody dog sitting. So we need to start recovering some of our expenses there.
Mhm.
And then, Your Worship, when you get to the next page, which is the zoning bylaw amendments, we were at 300. Whitehorse is at 350 and Dawson is at 410. So, our staff figured $400, but that's up for discussion. And then the other one, the next one down is demolition permits. Currently, we don't charge anything. We're the only community that doesn't charge anything for a demolition permit, because when something's demolished, we're no longer receiving taxes, and the other communities deem that they want to recoup some of that money. So Dawson is at $210 and Whitehorse is at $150 plus $5 a square meter. And then the next one is OCP change. We've been at $300 forever. Whitehorse doesn't specify a fee in their budget, in their stuff, but Dawson City charges $1,030. So that would be $1,000 plus $30 GST. $300 does not even come close into covering our expenses that the municipality has to put out to cover an OCP change, because we have to do a bylaw change. We have to send it off to the minister. We have to do a public hearing, and then we have to do 3 readings of a OCP change bylaw. So a lot of money and time goes into that. So hence the reason suggested increase on that one as well.
Thanks, Cam. Do you want to open up the landfill fees? Because since
Sure.
you're at the landfill discussion, you might as well go glance over your highlights there too.
Sure. So on the landfill, on the solid waste fees, currently for C&D sorted, we're at $80 a ton. Whitehorse is at $116.03. I'm not sure where the 03 comes from in their discussions, but there is room for increase there, and presentations that I was sat through today. Other communities have sorted C&D at 200 a ton. Right now we have unsorted C&D, which is another one that Whitehorse has at 300 and we have at 280. So we're very close on comparables there. But a lot of communities now are going for a bylaw to try and keep clean C&D like lumber and stuff out of the landfills. So I want to do a little more research on fees for that one. We had one of the communities that presented today was Squamish, and they actually put incentives. They charge a fee, and then if you meet percentages of recycling of that material and sorting of it, then you get percentages back. So it's something I'd like to look into a little closer. The next one farther down is our residual waste, which is anything household. Currently we're at $80 a ton, and Whitehorse is again at $116.03. Scrap metals, we're at $80 a ton, and Whitehorse is at $116.03. There's sort of the outlook now where for scrap metal, because there is Scrappy Larry in town who will take scrap metal for free. I think, and for us right now, we can't get rid of scrap metal. We've been trying to find firms that will actually come take our stuff. They're still on the edge where they want us to pay to take it away. So we need to have incentives to try and get it to Scrappy Larry right off the bat. And also we need to be able to cover our costs if we end up having to hire somebody to haul it out of here. So also attached there for your reference is the Whitehorse numbers. There's also a copy of Nanaimo, BC. I know they're different, but it's still very similar. Their tipping fees are at $130 a ton. So it just puts it in perspective where we fall. And actually their tipping fees were going up to $140 a ton. So just wanted to put that in perspective. What would you like to discuss next, Your Worship?
Thank you for all that, Cam. I guess the next would be the recreation fees.
So with all these.
Sorry, go ahead, Councilor.
With all these fees and bylaws, do we need to open up, like say the solid waste bylaw and have a first, second reading, because we'd be changing the fee structure?
No.
They're all built into the fees and charges bylaw. To avoid
Yep.
in those bylaws.
Gotcha, okay, that was the only question I had.
Yeah, so Your Worship, I'm just heading to recreation. Under recreation, there was only two things that were brought forward to me. And one was the rental of the bowling. And under bowling, we only have a fee for rental by the hour. So a request came in through community was that community members would like to see a daily rate or a half-day rate implemented, because when you look at hourly rate, it adds up really fast. So that one was for consideration. And then the other one that was brought forward was by staff, and that was actually by comments from the traveling public coming through, is the drop-in rates. Right now, we charge $6.30 for drop-in. And once you pay that $6.30, you can take a shower. You can go after your shower. You can go bowling or you can go to the gym, or you can go to the sauna, you could go skating or rollerblading, all for $6.30. Where there should be a fee, so it's not carte blanche on using of everything in the building for $6.30. So I'm sorry, I'm just flipping pages here. I know I had been provided rates. So a recommendation from Recreation was that for adults, it would be a $12 daily drop-in. Seniors and students would be $8, and then the youth would stay at the $6 mark plus GST.
Councilor Slager has a question for you,
That
Ken.
was just it, because I was gonna mention that, wasn't it, I remember saying $12 and $8, not just $6.
Right.
That was all.
So that's what that is, Your Worship.
I guess my suggestion would be, would you take some of those things out of your daily drop-in availability?
Like if you just paid for
Like
the shower.
take out the shower, sauna.
Yeah, we could do that, but we have had people come in that will, for that 6:30, like I say, they will pay their 6:30 and then do multiple things in the rec center at one go. Where other people come in and pay their 6:30 and only bowl. So I guess we're just trying to make it so it's a little more even playing field. And it's one of those areas that we could, by not putting it up very much, just a little bit, it would help increase some revenue.
All right, I guess I could just ask that maybe you provide us with a couple of options for that. You know, whether you take things out or increase your price in general or break it down a little bit more, but I think there's some opportunity there because it is super cheap. I don't know, I don't know where to get into any municipal building with like, I don't know what the CGC admin entry is, but I'm sure it's not $6. So, and it's a lot more obviously not a
Different, but yeah.
comparison, but I think we could look at some options there.
Yeah, no, that's for sure. So we'll definitely something that we can put figures with, but just based on the recommendation now, it would be 12, 8, and 6. So it would move each one of those up based, because currently right now adults is at 630, students and seniors is at 525, and youth is at 315. So we would be moving them all up accordingly.
Okay. And I guess one more question now that I'm looking at it might be like, how many annual passes do people purchase?
Very few. A lot of people don't want to commit for the full year. It's mostly monthly passes that it's being sold, or weekly passes.
So I guess to follow with that would be, well, maybe we can incentivize some annual passes for locals being cheap. You know, like, because if we're gonna have, cheaper, like a family pass that could be very, very reasonable, that would just generate a little bit of income, but also pay for them to be able to use it in some capacity.
Yeah, well, right now the family pass in the current bylaw is 1,050.
Yeah.
Which is for, 2 adults and 2 youth or children, which is very, very low, right? When you look at it over the 52 months for 4 people, you won't find a better deal anywhere than that. And that gets them, they can sign out skates, the kick sleds, all that stuff for that low price.
Yeah, I just, okay. I just think that I think there's some like a miss here. I think that we can incentivize some annual passes for people to have, like, for families to have that access all those things, or maybe not all those things, but a good chunk of them, and then have the other ones as additional costs. I think there's some room to wiggle there. I think there's some ways that we could. I don't want to put us out of the market, but I want there to be an equal pay.
Yeah,
And I
there's
want
gotta be some sort of level of affordability.
Yeah.
People use it.
Like, I know that $1,000 is cheap for the year, for sure. But that's if you're assuming they're gonna be there every day, and they're not. So if we take the average of them being there 20 times a year, at $6, that's, a lot, but that's still, I think at like $200-300, somebody might be willing to buy an annual pass. You just take out rentals. And you take
Yeah,
out-
like that was my question. And like, was there ever a time where all that stuff was separate and like, was it? Like, how did we arrive at the daily rate for everything inclusive? How did we arrive at that? Like, that was obviously before I was ever on council or anything, so.
Well, and that, your worship, that predates my employment as well. Yeah, I'm not sure how that was ever
Is it-
determined.
Cause like, is it harder to administrate or whatever, you know, like if people just pay for what they use? Or do we lose money that way?
Well, there was where you could get a swimming pass.
Yeah,
You get a weight room pass. So there are separate passes for separate activities already in place. So, yeah.
Okay. I think I just like to see some options. I don't know. I don't know how you feel, but I think that I don't know who's gonna pay $1,000 for two adults and 2 youth, like to use the rec center.
No, you go buy your own kickstands for that kind of money.
I don't know. Yeah, so. I don't know. I'm just a general question.
Yep, no, we can, I can go back to my staff and get more suggestions and get back to you on that one.
Okay, thanks. I guess the next on the list would be the utility rates, sir.
Yes, so as you know, council's really tossed us around because they, you know, we wanted to get so that it wasn't subsidized service for water and sewer. It's hard to do comparables based on metered prices, but Whitehorse is prime example right now for water and sewer. Non-metered, it's $52.50 in town. Whitehorse is $85.85. We are currently charging $30 for metered service. And Whitehorse is at $85.85. So that's their minimum charge, but their minimum charge is based on 38 cubic meters. So when you go back and forth, it's still they're not quite double us, but their price they're giving just under double the amount of water that we are, but their price is over double what we're charging. And they're anything above our metered rate, which is above the 20 cubic meters. Right now, we're charging $1.50, and Whitehorse is at $2.27. So there is room for some movement on our side there. We've been at these same rates now for a few years. And then commercial and Whitehorse, where we charge a different rate for commercial compared to residential. Whitehorse is the same price across the board. So they're at the 85 mark, where we're at 67.50. And I don't know what council's comfortability is on that. And then the next thing is bulk water. We charge $100 deposit for the card, for the card lock, sorry, and Whitehorse is at $2.50. And so comparable wise, the rest of the fees are fairly in line. We've been very fortunate with council's approval of the capital funding a few years ago now, more than a few years ago, when we were able to get that gas tax funding to buy water meters for everybody in town that wanted one, and all the businesses. That really made a lot of the other fees non-existent. We need them on the books in case somebody starts up something new or whatever, but most of the places in town have switched over to metered rates. And we have very few, I wish I had the numbers in front of me, but we have very few people that really go significantly over on their metered minimum rates.
So they don't go over their metered minimum.
Yes, that's right. Very few. And I can get that stat pulled for the next meeting, but I would say I don't know, I better not say what the percentage is, but it's very minimal amount that go over their metered rates.
Okay, any questions or comments?
No.
I guess, I know that we've talked about this in the past, I guess. My only comment might be, or maybe suggestion, but I just want to see where the cost recovery looks like. I want to see where we're at for what it's costing us to operate the utilities versus what we're recovering.
Yeah, and your worship, that will be, that information will be before you, well, definitely on the December 6th meeting, but I can bring it forward to next meeting as well. It was in your last budget variance report that was before council last meeting for the quarterly reports, but I can go through and pull the 2021 year-end numbers to give you a better picture of what our costs were for water and sewer compared to our revenue.
Okay, great. Yeah, no, yeah, of course. I blanked on that, but yeah, take Councillor Slager's side of things, we've been increasing costs all over the place for a long time now. Taxes are probably going to go up. We have other costs coming up. If we don't have to increase our costs on these services, then I probably
Would like to leave them as is.
You said it, not me.
Yeah. Well,
Okay.
No, your worship, it was just, it's due diligence from administration, because we have to review those fees every year. So we need to bring something on the record forward to council.
No, and I appreciate it, and I'm sure council does as well. And that's great. I think that's all we have listed in our package for the fees and charges bylaw. Is there any other questions in general or comments?
Well, I think that we need to be sustainable with what we're doing. So I agree with, a cost analysis for sure.
There's a cost analysis, but then we've got a bunch of leaky pipes, so. It's kind of like if we're doing due diligence, it'd be like fix your pipes and then look at your actual cost of producing water, because right now. We're, if you're leaking, say even 15% of every liter that you produce, or 15% of every liter you produce, well then, you know what I mean, like. That's a cost that's not really,
Nobody's using.
it's not your consumer's fault, you know what I mean, it's the manufacturer's fault.
It's a part of providing the service. Right?
Yeah.
But there is the understanding that, yes, our infrastructure is old and we are looking at fixing that as well. So, but still, I think, just looking at a good, cost analysis and you're right, the price of things are going up. And in order for us to be able to sustain what we're doing, we need to really look at those dollars a little bit. So, I mean, I feel like some things should probably go up. And how we come up with those numbers, that's another thing. So it's nice to see what Whitehorse has in Dawson and compare ourselves with them to see where we're at. And you can see that we're really low on some things. Pretty much everything we're lower than everybody else. So I think that, we do need to look at that for sure.
Cool. Thank you.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
May I add a couple?
Yep.
Is this the current one?
What is that?
Or is this the current one?
Just flashing me a paper there.
Sorry,
The current fees and bylaws.
this is the original one that was emailed to us, and
Yeah.
then this one was the one that Cam's notes are on. Yeah, they both. Current, okay. So the cemetery fees that are on this, because I know we're gonna be talking about that soon. Is this what the current fees are, or is this what the proposed new ones are?
No, your worship, we didn't propose any changes to the cemetery fees because that is the hot button topic that council's working on with this cemetery bylaw. So at the current time, we've left them where they were.
Okay. And then the other thing I noticed is that there's nothing in here about the ski chalet. Now that we're gonna be taking that on half the year, I'm just wondering if there shouldn't be. So, because there's a thing for every other rental that we have, I'm just wondering if there shouldn't be a line for that facility. for rentals. And then my last one, oh, it's just about the bowling, because, same, I think that's a great idea to have a, daily rate on that. On the bowling, just because we do have a daily rate for like the arena and the community hall and the curling and everything else, so it just seems like that one just got missed or whatever at some point, so.
Yeah, your worship, thank you, Councillor Hanchar, for bringing the ski hill rental forward. Yes, it is something that I totally missed when we looked at it, and we will definitely be adding that in.
Thank you.
Thank you, Saya Lockwood, for all that information. The fees and charges bylaw, I think, was an excellent addition to all of our bylaws. We created that recently, 2021, I think it was the first approval. It's great. Next on the agenda is the zoning bylaw. From what we heard from the community, which was very minimal, there was a couple of letters from the community on things that needed to be changed. I think administration has handled that well. I think that if there's any comments on that was provided in your package, we can address that now. The zoning bylaw has been in our package now for quite some time, so I think we should plan to push forward on some of these things.
I agree. I think that we've gone over this a lot. I'm not sure how much more we're gonna get as far as, feedback. So, I feel pretty close to comfortable to move to the next step.
Thank you, Councillor Hanchar.
Yeah.
Is there any more questions or comments regarding the zoning bylaw?
We did make the changes as per Carlson's and Carrie's letter.
Yes, those are just due diligence over the mapping. It does,
Handling things.
yeah. things that-
Your worship, I can speak to that. Yeah, those are minor things that we are going to have addressed on the map before it comes back for final readings. But there's besides the float plane base, which is in the OCP as being correct, but it's different on the zoning map. I had made note of that earlier and met with Carlson's about that. And then the other area that there was inconsistency in between the OCP and the zoning was the location for the new lift station for Francis Avenue. So those are two amendments that will be made to the zoning map before it comes back to you for final reading.
Okay, so we can have the first reading of it on our next decision.
Yes, your worship, you're full, you're good to move ahead with first and second reading
Great,
next meeting.
great.
Thank you.
Cam, was something else put in there, the suggestion to look at, I don't know what you call it, like a variance where you have a certain amount where you can't cut into, so you're not like right looking at your guy's property? Like cutting it right to the line. Did we do anything with that?
No, council never brought forward a proposed change to the zoning to include that.
Okay.
So now is the time for you guys to discuss that. But you have up until after second reading, before third reading, to implement any of those changes that you would like. But those are decisions that should be made or discussed at the COW meeting and then brought forward to administration to impose if that's the decision.
Okay.
So something we can discuss right now, Councillor Paquette, is whether council would like to see a variance of vegetation between properties, whether that be in regular residential or commercial or a country residential.
You're talking like a green buffer, is that what your?
Yeah.
Is there?
So basically, like, okay, so Aaron's bringing forward and there's clear cut right to their property line and there, it's shocking. It's shocking to see that. And then for myself, I live in country residential. And so it would be nice because I moved there, not so I have to look at my neighbor.
So,
if there was a little bit of a variance, if that's what, is that what you call it, Ken? Buffer?
It would be a setback, your worship. And I guess it comes down to certain types of zoning where that would be able to be done. But in most residential, other than country residential, would you be able to have that luxury where you'd have enough room on your property to have a vegetation buffer? And I guess then you get into how do you implement that in commercial or industrial zones where the purpose of those is to have businesses operating where the buffers wouldn't be applicable. I know Ms. Lamonte's is an sort of a one-off or an extreme, because that was done by the council of the day to do spot zoning to allow for a residential property in an industrial zone. And I just forewarn councils moving forward, you can see now how those spot zoning situations can put people's lives in a real turmoil. So I think council needs to tread cautiously going forward on those type of things.
Yep, I think we've addressed that quite a lot, and we all understand the spot zoning for sure. Councillor Paquette, I guess like Cam was mentioning, the zoning, so commercial versus industrial versus R1, which is a residential rural.
Residential multi, you do a duplex, but you can't do a triplex.
Within the community or country residential. So I'm thinking you're wanting to discuss country residential. And then, like maybe we could look at some sort of option in large commercial or country residential lots that require some amount of vegetation, some amount. But that's,
The zoning bylaw already has that in there, where it says
Shrubbery.
it says you should though, it's like that.
so
And but
if you could you look into your country residential definitions and see what kind of setbacks there might be within that bylaw? And then you can provide it to us with suggestions, and then maybe administration will look at that as well and see what can be done to maybe increase vegetation within country residential lots.
And that's all in the zoning bylaw, or is there other bylaws that I should be looking at?
That should be within your zoning bylaw.
Okay.
Yeah.
I also sometimes feel like if you want the buffer, that you could just plant them on your side as well.
That's what I was gonna say.
Like if you want the
Shrubbery.
shrubbery, you really can't.
But you could do what you want with your lot.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
and that's exactly right. And that's the thought that came to mind when you talk about spot zoning. It's like, so, and I understand in Aaron's case is that, he plowed it right to him, like cut right to his line, but they didn't have to have theirs cleared right to their line, which would have given them a little bit of a little bit of privacy, a little bit of whatever. But yeah, if people are plowing right together, clearing right together, then that's what you're gonna get. You're absolutely right, which for all of us driving past, it was a bit of a shocker. Now it's I just see it all the time. But yeah, so.
That is a one-off situation.
No, I understand that. I understand what you're talking about, Cam. I understand what you're talking about. I'm just saying going forward, yeah, like it's awkward, absolutely. But for me, just personally, I think a lot of people move to country residential so that you're not looking at your neighbor. Do you know what I mean? You do, and you're right, you clear as far as you want on your land. But it also gives the opportunity because trees die. You also have to fire smart your property as well, which we do. And so in doing that, you want to see through, you need to see through, that's fire smart. But then, as you're doing that and as trees are dying or whatever, that then you do risk having a lot of exposure to other people's land. Whereas if you have a little bit of a setback, then that's less, right?
Yeah. So yeah, I think what I maybe suggested, Councillor Piet, is just take a look at that zoning designation, country residential, look at the definitions, look at the setbacks, look at what you think is working, what isn't working, and maybe talk to a few community members and see if they have any suggestions as to what they'd like to see there. And if we can avoid the spot zoning, like Cam said, then we should be able to avoid situations like this in the future.
Cam, when people then sell their land, or can you not, okay, so when we talk about people having a business, right? And then they have their house on the same land as their business. can they not then change, or can we not then, when they go to sell that, have the capacity to change zones? Like, can we do that?
Your worship, that falls under non-conforming under the municipal act. So if the council could change it, but then we run into the same situation we are with Ms. Labonte and Mr. Cole's property. It was zoned as industrial, with the house was considered a living quarters at one time, and then it was changed to residential. So that's where it's better off council leaves them as non-conforming, because then it can still be used as a residence. But if if they went to build again on the same property, or if that place was the building or the premise was destroyed, then it has to be brought back. Can only be brought back to the current zoning. They can't build a house on there on a commercial lot that was non-conforming.
And that's what's referred to as grandfather clause.
Mhm.
But you think of like the highway, right? So there was businesses there before, and then people lived there. Now people are living there with no business.
It's under the care, it's not called the care house, it's called something else.
No, but it's
Secondary.
Yeah, but if they
So-
destroy it or like want to rebuild, they can't rebuild the residential there if it's
Right.
zoned for commercial.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so they're living, they're
If
getting,
they want to redo their property or house, they can't do that.
Unless the zoning's changed, which we're trying to.
which we're trying to
Right.
avoid. No, absolutely. I'm just trying to
Yeah,
understand
that's-
all of it myself
Right.
as well, because, yeah.
Yeah, and that, your worship, that includes somebody building an addition onto a existing property, right? So if they have a house on there, they cannot change the footprint, because then that takes them out of the non-conforming and changes the use on that property where it has to go to the current zoning.
Okay.
It's a good thing.
Clear as mud,
All right.
clear as mud.
It's confusing for sure. Yeah, it's not an easy process.
But do you have any more questions?
No, I'm okay.
Is there any other zoning questions?
not for me right now, thank you.
Councilor Burgess? Okay, so with that said, I think we'll carry on from the zoning bylaw. Everybody's comfortable. Like I said before, we have some process here, so we will do the first and second reading of the zoning bylaw on our next regular meeting in November. And then we'll have another committee of the whole where any changes or, clarification that's necessary can be provided to administration, and then we can do third and final following that, hopefully by the end of December.
Sorry, just so I'm clear, you're saying the November 15th, we're doing first and second?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, next on the agenda is the draft cemetery bylaw. Again, we had this at our town hall meeting. There was lots of discussion around our cemetery bylaw. There's quite a bit of feedback, and what is council's general census on the cemetery bylaw?
That we're not close yet. I still stand by my previous comment that this new version is a lot better, just as far as like readability and being able to understand it and hopefully implement it. My only concern, I guess, is because I left everything at home, unfortunately, but the new one has a thing in there that says the town can pretty much review each case individually, which I think is a good thing to have in there, just because I think every circumstance is gonna be a little bit different. But at the same time, I wonder, years down the road when this administration and these staff members and stuff are no longer, or maybe they will be, who knows, but let's say there's a turnover, what's that gonna look like?
So some concern on ambiguity.
Yeah.
Is that a word?
Yes.
But no, that makes complete sense. It's nice to have some clear direction for administrations in the future. We're working on it now. We're getting our feedback now, but that might change in 10 years. But again, yeah. I guess from myself, it'd be just nice to set somewhat of a timeline. I don't want to rush. But I do think that we've had this on the agenda for quite some
Mhm.
time now, so we should kind of lock down an idea when we want to complete it by. I know administration's actually worked tirelessly on this, and I
Yeah.
think that we have to kind of push ourselves to make some decisions and make sure we can move forward on it. So what kind of timeline is everybody comfortable with?
Well, the thing is the minute you create a bunch of changes, which this one changed drastically,
Hmm.
like by 10 pages, by grammar that people can actually read and understand. Like it's actually interesting to read now. I think, and I know this has gone, you're right, this has been since almost a year that we've been working on this, like it's been a long time. So I definitely agree, but I also feel that the new one, I think that we need to make sure that we have good feedback from the First Nations in particular, to make sure that they feel that it's culturally sensitive and culturally correct to the Kaska First Nation, and just make sure that then we're not backpedaling or that we're being offensive or anything like that, which there again, it's almost like starting from scratch again.
Mhm.
So it is going to be a bit of a process, I think, for us to be able to get that done.
Are you, like, we can add though, like, not so much to the bylaw, but with I don't want to say procedure, but
Policy.
right? Like, so if we don't get the feedback that we're looking for right away with the Arts First Nation or anything like that, can we add a policy in there though to help support the bylaw, to
Make it all work together?
make it all work together? Like, just because like.
I think that was one of the things that we actually heard at the town hall, was
That's right.
that there would need to be a supporting policy to go with the. bylaw.
That's right, because there has to be, and it's just, if we're not getting that feedback, we don't want to close the door on that, like.
Yep.
And to implement it and have to reroute this, but at the same time, is I don't think.
Policy's a little bit
we
easier.
Have this hanging here for another year.
No, absolutely.
Like, I don't know how much time you give people to respond and give us their feedback.
Mhm.
I don't know what's a good timeline, but
Oh, that's.
I understand we got it rewritten, which is great. But we've also, how long have we had it out now for, like a month, maybe? No, like the
The new
new
one,
revised, like,
Season 2,
yeah, like,
it's just before the town hall, I
it's
guess.
just in
yeah.
the town hall.
So I don't know how long you give, like,
Only been 2 weeks, I think.
But if you look at the response of like the people that said like, so what's wrong with the current situation? They want the grass clipped a little bit more, they want it cleaned up a little bit, and a couple of benches was the biggest complaints. Other than that, people are kind of okay with the way,
Mhm.
a little bit more infill, some pathways, a little bit of signage, but like, they really just want someone that they can hang out and have a little conversation.
So I'll suggest, make a suggestion.
But that too, but
Make a suggestion. This is a suggestion. You guys are gonna decide. But I would suggest that we set a timeline for the first reading. And we make sure we do our due diligence to make sure we get the information back from whoever we need it to be back from. And if we set that timeline, let's say February, that's
I was gonna say the end of the January meeting.
end of January, beginning of February.
Like, at least
That gives us,
gives it
that gives us.
2.5.
Is that realistic as far as like if we get any feedback and any work needs to be done on the bylaws, is that a realistic timeline, the January one, just because we also have budget and we also have a couple other things.
But it would just be the first reading though, right?
Okay, so March.
Right.
Cam, do we have an existing policy then to go with the bylaw? Or do we have to create one of those?
Which policy would you be referring to, Counselor?
Well, the cemetery bylaw.
The only-
So, Councilor Burtis talked about a policy. Do we have an existing policy that goes with the cemetery bylaw already, or do we have to create one?
We would have to create, because currently we operate off the bylaw. The only document that we have that's a directional document currently on the cemetery is, we have actually included the hearse and the use of it, or the non-use of it moving forward. And then the other thing that was a policy document, and that was created with our union, was the fact that we're not using staff to lower the casket into the ground anymore.
Okay, so is the intention to policy then to go with the bylaw?
Well, I guess it depends. I'll have to really go through the whatever policy, the version of the bylaw you want to move forward to see what needs a policy for direction, because I can't draft policy until I have a firmed up bylaw from you guys, is I guess what my answer is.
And do you normally have a bylaw and then a policy to go with it? Is that the normal process?
Not always. It depends on what the situation or what the topic is about.
Okay,
It's
Okay.
not always needed.
so the reason I'm asking is because if we're just gonna really work on getting the bylaw done, and maybe the bylaw doesn't warrant a policy, but if then we get the bylaw done and then we still have to do a policy, then we're still working on, like, it's just another process, right? There's something else. So that's why I was just asking about that.
So your worship, the bylaw will allow us to proceed, and policies are a fairly easy document. It doesn't require 2 readings to get it passed, really third and final reading. Where a policy is a motion at one council meeting on a policy, and it depends on the policy. Some policies don't need to come to council, right?
Okay, thanks for clarifying that.
I am good with the February proposal.
Okay.
Personally, I guess.
February or the first decision meeting in February?
Yeah,
So that would be like the middle of February.
You won't be here then.
I won't be here, but you guys can do that.
so sorry, that would be the.
That would be the
Okay.
21st of February.
Oh, yeah.
My birthday. I'll zoom in for that.
Oh, don't let them.
Go ahead, Cam.
I guess your worship, my question is, if there is feedback comes from the Ard First Nation in between now and then, or somebody else, I think it needs to go to a committee of the whole meeting first to have those discussions about any recommendations that go forward before you go for a reading, unless you want to go for first and second reading and then implement any changes after second reading.
If we do it in February, don't we have then 2, 3 committee of the whole meetings potentially?
If we did that, we're just kind of setting a general timeline for it, right? So I think Cam's right. I think we bring back any feedback to a committee of the whole meeting.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Maybe that's the beginning of March, be back. We can go through that discussion and then we can implement for second reading in the middle of March. And that gives everybody enough time to hopefully get the feedback, reach out to everybody with the new copy over the holiday season and budget season. Won't pressure the admin. And then we can hopefully implement something for spring when we need to move forward with landscaping, et cetera. Sound good?
Yeah.
Okay.
Can side note, I probably asked this before, but can we proceed, Cam, with the landscaping portion of things without the bylaw?
Yes, your worship, that's already been approved by council. So we did have some money. We had $60,000 already approved in this year's budget. And I'll have to look at it to see if it's money that depends on what funding pot it comes from. I can't remember off the top of my head, but odds are that money is already slated for the start on that work. So that money would just be rolled over to next spring. A lot of that work is surveying work, which it can't be completed now. It's got to be done in the spring. So those are things, like I said, we'll have a better idea on costs, but that I think that 60,000 is a automatic rollover. It doesn't have to come back for approval in the next year's capital.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, great. It's nice to have a timeline. Just make sure you reach out to all your constituents, get as much feedback as possible. And I know it has been diligently requesting information from the administration at LFN, so hopefully we will get some valued feedback for implementation. All right, Number 12 on our agenda is the designated municipal officer appointment. So this is just a motion to appoint Mr. Colin O'Hara as the fire chief.
Where?
Your worship, so for the record, Colin O'Hara has been offered the position as fire chief. He has accepted. He will be on site to officially start as fire chief on November 14th is his first day in the office.
Can you give us some background on where he's from?
Yeah, that he's the one I presented to council on previously that ended up with family issues that couldn't attend.
And then change his mind?
No, his family situation has rectified itself, and now he is able to attend Watson Lake and fulfill commitment. We've advertised this position since that first go around, and it's been unsuccessful. So I've maintained correspondence with Mr. O'Hara through this time period, and he's definitely overqualified, or not overqualified. He's definitely qualified for the position. He was the deputy fire chief in the city of North Battleford and acted as their training officer. His last full-time position was as the fire chief based out of Virden, Manitoba. And prior to North Battleford, which was before Virden, he was a captain and a volunteer firefighter in Coldstream, BC. So he's got about 15 years fire service. References came back very highly recommending him through the volunteer ranks and through his full-time ranks. And the bonus is he's a Red Seal journeyman electrician.
That changes everything.
Oh, your worship, and then there's one to hit your checkbox. Colin played professional hockey in Europe.
Oh, he's hired. He has to be designated to hire. Right, Campbell, why?
Yes. Yes, he has to be appointed by council because it's a designated position as an officer for the town of Watson Lake. So before he can start his employment, I need council to appoint him as a designated officer for the municipality.
And then he will do an oath at the next meeting.
Okay. I'll make
Yes.
a motion to appoint Colin O'Hara as a designated municipal officer.
I can second that.
Thank you, Councilor Hatcher. Thank you, Councilor Burtis. All in favor? Carry.
Sorry.
Yes, and your worship, for the record, him swearing the oath can be done in front of Tiffany as our notary. It doesn't have to be done in front of council, but I would like to get him into the first council meeting on the 15th for his introduction.
I would just assume have him swear his oath in front of council. That'd be great.
Yeah, that's not a problem. We can do it on the 15th.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, next on the agenda is our councilor open forum. Do you have any questions or comments, councilors?
Just on your fire chief, so it's taken us a long time to hire somebody. How long is his term then now?
You know,
It is still a 1-year term.
Oh, okay.
I got it. Okay. Thank you.
Oh,
Anything else, Councilor Paquette? You look tired. Councilor Hatcher? Bring it.
no, I'm okay today. Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Thanks.
Okay, Councilor, thank you, Councilor Slager.
All right now.
I would just like to say thank you to administration and the fire department for the fireworks and the efforts throughout Halloween. Everything was excellent. I really had a great sense of community yesterday when we were walking around and we saw everybody out and about. I think everybody was having a great time, and fireworks were well deployed, but they were excellent. So I had a few comments about the amount of fireworks this year. They said to increase the budget. I said, maybe we'll think about it, but not likely. Anything else?
With, Carl, with regards to earlier presentation,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, because we kind of glossed over that and Aaron had some questions. And we were just we're going to come back or come together and talk about that some more, because I feel like we kind of glossed over it a bit.
Okay. She did present us with some questions.
And I do understand, like, there's some things in there that are really just not a council matter, that's a CEO matter, that's a bylaw matter, that's
Mhm.
environment thing, it really doesn't involve us per se.
Yep.
And maybe that's why we weren't privy to every single movement that was made by our staff, because it's just not our business.
Mhm.
But I don't know how to make this better, and I'm trying to think in my mind how to. That makes
So
sense?
there was some questions she directed directly to administration, right?
Yeah,
And that was the waste burial, the addition of gravel, the loads of debris, right? I think we'll leave that up to administration to handle.
gotcha.
Fair enough. She then presented a question to us, some accountability. You know, I don't know. Since we're in the committee of the whole, we should discuss that in a public forum and see where everybody thinks and what their feelings are in that sense.
So one thing that I was in agreement with is some sort of policy or whatever that looks like, rule, whatever, about how long we have to respond to any correspondence or delegation. Because a lot of times we have people that come in here and that present stuff to us and we say, okay, we'll respond to you in writing. But there's no hard rule about how long that's gonna be. And I understand that, like, we're really busy. Everyone's really busy. Tiffany, Cam, everybody's really, really busy. But there should be something, whether it's 2 weeks, whether it's a month, like whatever, like you can expect a response from us in some capacity, even if it's just a one-liner that says, we're still working on it, stand by. That some sort of response within 2 weeks or 30 days or whatever it is. I think that there should be just something written down so that, like, that's the rule.
Okay.
No matter what, somebody gets a response in that amount of time. And I know that, again, like, I don't think this happens all the time. Like, I think that it just one of those things that just happen.
Yep.
But I don't think that
It's a bad thing to have.
it's a bad thing to have in place.
I agree. I don't know what there is for policy correspondence, a policy surrounding correspondence. But I do agree that we should have a timeline there for, because if we worked on council, we'd expect the same, right? I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And I guess that's really on us to develop, and with the help of administration, hopefully, to pass a policy for that.
Right.
So do you want to discuss that now, or should we bring that forward in another committee of the whole, or what do you want to do?
I think we just did discuss it.
Okay, so.
Yeah, like I'd like to see that implemented. I guess that's a question I have for Cam and Tiffany, I guess. I just don't know. They're usually the ones that respond. You know what I mean? Or yourself, the mayor.
Yep.
So I guess I don't know what's a realistic amount of time.
That's what I was gonna say.
Because obviously some things require a little bit more research than others. Some things are quick and
Legal.
easy to answer. Some of them might be legal. So I don't know. Is 30 days reasonable? Does government have a policy on that? Like, usually
I think they do.
Cam, do we have anything in place right now in respect to any kind of correspondence and timelines?
Your worship, nothing that I've been able to come across, and yourself and I reviewed the council procedures bylaw, and it's not covered in there. Yes, and I guess, yeah, it comes down to as well. Then this one, there might have been a little miscommunication because of the fact that I was under the understanding that council was going to provide a response, not administration, by what was on the record, based on the last meeting with Miss Labonte, because I felt the administration had been communicating with them through the whole process. We've had 3 meetings in my office, and bylaws been in regular contact, but as a whole, I think administration can research policies in other jurisdictions and bring something back to council for your committee of the whole meeting in December.
So Cam, when you have those meetings, do you at the end of the meeting kind of just give them like a little summary email? Do you do anything like that?
No, we haven't on these ones because it's been all face to face. And, you know, in hindsight, it's one that we should have maybe, we documented on internal reporting, but it's not, we haven't sent them chaser emails on it. Communication on this whole file has been rather strained.
There's one line that I was reading in the correspondence via, you know, there. That had, it was almost cryptic in a way, if you didn't kind of catch it was the last line of like the second paragraph that said. Like something along the lines of duly noted, we're gonna add this to our already existing file type thing. It was a letter from environmental, so find it, anyways, I guess without even going there. Cam, would you say that this matter is somewhat resolved, almost resolved, kind of resolved? Like, how are you feeling about this going forward? Like, is this gonna come up again at a later date?
Your worship, that's sort of a loaded question. I thought it's been very clear in the response from environmental compliance. And we've had 2 emails from them. First one stating that it was their jurisdiction. And then the second one after them coming down to say that they've investigated all the different acts and that there is no violation. So it makes it really hard. When we deal with one part of it, then there seems to be another complaint about something different that we haven't seen before come forward. So I honestly don't know if there will be a formal happy resolution to this, no matter what plays out.
Gotcha, okay. Understood, yeah, and the other part that I kept noticing was the mention of new material, so I did notice that. And of course, there's other rules too. I don't know the exact one or which bylaw this is from. But it's, if you're using the property for its existing purpose, like if you buy a gas station and you still run it as a gas station, it doesn't trigger, say, an environmental assessment. But the day you decide to turn that gas station property into like a farm or a nail salon, if you will, something completely different is where I'm going with this, then it does trigger, it could possibly trigger inspection, if you will. Yeah, are you aware of this, Cam, or no?
Well, and currently in the current zoning bylaw that is in effect, the only place that there is even an option, when you look at the forms that were developed, and that was prior to myself being in this position, the forms that were developed had little check boxes on the last page saying other things that could be requested, you know, environmental assessment, blah, 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 different things. But then right beside it, to the right, it says, see applicable zoning. So the only place in the zoning bylaw where there's reference towards environmental assessment and those type of things that Ms. Labonte has been requesting is in a zoning change or a variance is the only place. So unless there's a variance going on, that would trigger, there's a possibility that we could request that. But under a normal zoning application for development permit, that option isn't there. So the new forms will not specify that, because all that's done is opened up this ambiguity and uncertainty as to what is required. And you really have to read the whole thing. It goes back to, as an example, Councillor Schlager, on the code of conduct. Remember where you had read that paragraph 3, but you had to read paragraph 2, and that's the way the zoning bylaw is read. So if you read only one certain section, you interpret it one way, but you have to read the whole thing to understand what it means. You can't piecemeal out what you want out of a paragraph or a section.
That's it. Thank you.
I have one more.
Mhm.
I'm just curious what the process is if somebody wants to have something added to the council meeting agenda. What is the current, like,
We just went over that. We just went over that last week with.
Oh, I thought you meant like just right now. I'm like, I missed it.
Last week, it's council procedures, and we looked at that bylaw, so the request was submitted on time, and we are required to have them as a delegation if they are.
So
requesting.
regardless of what it is,
Mhm.
because I know that obviously there's some things that might be deemed to not be
Yep.
relevant to whatever we're doing, but I think that we've had some far out things in the.
There is a clause in there that says within, what was it? Cam?
Your worship, it states that if somebody applies to be a delegation within more than 3 days prior to a meeting, they must be added to the agenda. So I think your council procedures bylaw, which is a 2002, is another one that needs to go on the list of things to be reviewed. And maybe that is where this new addition to the response to council's commitment to correspondence can be also adapted at the same time.
Sounds good.
I think actually that would answer a lot of Ms. Levante's concerns if we reviewed that procedures by law, because there's a lot of things about the accountability process, responses, et cetera, that are included in that. So that would answer a lot of things.
I don't know if it's 20 years old. It's probably
Yeah, it's due.
time for a look over.
Yeah, otherwise, if your worship, if-
We gotta fix that one first.
Yeah.
sorry, Derek, sorry I cut you off there, Counselor Slager. Otherwise, it deems that if administration isn't responding on time, then it's a performance issue, which falls under council's disciplinary functions with myself.
Okay, I think that answers a lot of our questions. Is that council procedures bylaw that we can look into to help resolve some of these problems? Not all of them, but some of them. Yeah, I think I'll leave it at that.
Motion to adjourn.
No, not quite.
Not yet?
We have a committee of the whole, so.
Sorry.
Next on the agenda, we're gonna move forward if there's no other councillor open forum questions. Good. Next is gallery open forum, and people have exited in masses. So the last person, one and only we have is Patty McLeod. Do you have any questions for us today?
Hey, hi. Just a couple of things. One, it was quite interesting to hear the comments about the sign on the end of Watson Lake, because I had written a letter to the highways minister regarding the two signs at Upper Liard. And they said, too bad. To LFN to deal with. So maybe I went to the wrong minister. This is where I'm going there. But I wondered when I was listening to you talk about the fees and charges, I wondered if this was going to some kind of public consultation.
I mean, it could definitely fall into our budgetary process.
We'll be having a town hall meeting in
It
January.
could.
Yeah.
Yep. I understand that you have the authority to just impose these fees and charges, but some of them I think are kind of concerning. And one I was listening to was regarding costing out a demolition permit. And I'm wondering how that would go towards improving the derelict buildings. Like, why would you then? So I think there needs to be a bit of conversation and some more thought go into some of these charges, and I think maybe people should be consulted on this. On some of these increases or the discussed increases are going to cause a lot of concern, and maybe if you got ahead of that, you wouldn't have the same problem that previous councils had when they're implementing new fees and charges.
Fair enough. And as you know, this is a public forum, so we hope that people can commit to our committee of the whole meetings for feedback, but I understand where you're coming from. And we'll definitely consider that for a town hall meeting, which will be in January.
Okay. And just one other thing, then I talked to or texted with Cam a little bit about this today, is that there's a bill going forward in the legislature right now called Animal Protection Act. And while the bill itself may not be very prescriptive, it gives the government the authority to impose a set of regulations that I think will have far-reaching implications for every animal owner, including cats and dogs and the municipality. So it sounds like Watson Lake was not consulted on this bill back in 2018-19 because apparently the rule was if you want to be consulted, you have to ask to be consulted. So there was no public meetings held in Watson Lake. Mayor and council weren't consulted. LFN was not consulted. Upper Liard was not consulted. And of course, the people in general, Watson Lake, were not consulted. So I know AYC has petitioned the government to do a better consultation process because there are a lot of groups out there that are against this bill. So I just wanted to raise that with you. You know, Cam is of the opinion that the town should be consulted, and I agree. So I don't know how successful we're going to be on this, but it's certainly what we're pushing for. And I just wanted to update you on that, and that's it for me.
Okay, thanks, Patty. We could definitely just reach out from mayor and council asking what this entails, because we haven't been consulted in any way. So be interesting to know what that is.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Just-
mean, it's, you know, if mayor and council is comfortable, they could certainly write a letter to the minister asking to be consulted on this bill before it passes.
Sounds great. We will do so. And what department is this in?
I wondered the same thing.
Highways, environment, actually, environment, Department of Environment. So it's Nils Clark,
And what did you call it? Animal protection?
Animal Protection Act.
Thanks.
So if yeah, I mean, if you can do that tomorrow, that would be awesome.
We're on it.
Sorry, no, sorry.
Tiffany's got nothing to do tomorrow. We'll make sure that happens.
Yeah. Good girl, Tiffany. Okay.
Thanks, Patty.
Thank you.
Hey, thanks. Bye-bye.
Thanks for attending in whole. Michael Proust, do you have any questions or comments regarding our committee of the whole meeting?
Nope, none for me. Thanks very much for having me.
Thank you. Thanks for sticking around. You're getting an award. Cam, what's the score in the hockey game?
No idea. I didn't even know there was one on, so
Okay.
Also, do you have a tripod?
We have to have a motion to adjourn.
Oh, sorry.
Make a motion for.
Thank you, Councillor Paquette. Thank you, Councillor Burtis. Thank you, everybody. Good night. Cam.
Night, everyone.
Good night.
Do I have that?